Hello children, today we are going to revise the science and I am going to take some points from all the lessons so that we can cover all the chapters. First, what precaution should we keep in our mind before while sowing seeds? So what are the precautions? Seeds should be of good quality, healthy and free from diseases. They must be planted at the proper depth in the soil. If planted deep, what will happen? They cannot respire. And their shoots may not be able to push through the soil. And if planted on the surface, they will be eaten by birds. Next point is seeds require water for germination. The soil should therefore have water in it. And they should be sown at proper distances. Okay. Now next is what are weeds? Weeds are unwanted plants that grow along with the crop. They compete with the crops for water, minerals and sunlight. Therefore reduce crop yield. They spread very fast. So and I would like to tell you the names of different weeds. Common different weeds are Amaranthus, Chenopodium, wild oat, grass. And their removal is very important. So the process of removing weeds from a field is called weeding. And we use some herbicides to kill these weeds. And those herbicides are Delapon, Metaclor and Cyniazid. Okay children. Now we are coming to the nitrogen cycle. What is nitrogen cycle? The cyclic process of nitrogen being fixed, used by plants and animals and later returned to the atmosphere is referred to as the nitrogen cycle. There are a few steps are involved. The steps are nitrogen fixation, nitrogen assimilation, ammonification, nitrification and denitrification. We are going to discuss about these steps. First is nitrogen fixation. The process of conversion of free nitrogen gas of the atmosphere into nitrogen compounds is called nitrogen fixation. In nature, it takes place in the following ways. First is atmospheric nitrogen fixation and second is biological. In atmospheric nitrogen fixation, lightning causes high temperature which results in a reaction between nitrogen and oxygen present in air to produce oxides of nitrogen. These dissolve in rainwater forming dilute nitric acid. This nitric acid reacts with alkalis of the soil to turn into nitrates like calcium nitrate, etc. Other way of nitrogen fixation is biological nitrogen fixation. It is the conversion of atmospheric nitrogen into nitrogen compound by living organisms. Nitrogen fixing bacteria is called rhizobium bacteria. They are found in soil. They are also found in root nodules of leguminous plants like pea and beans. These bacteria fix atmospheric nitrogen into nitrates. After nitrogen fixation, second step is nitrogen assimilation. This process of conversion of inorganic nitrogen compound into organic compounds that become a part of living organism is called nitrogen assimilation. Next is ammonification. This process of conversion of complex organic compound like protein into ammonia is called ammonification. Then nitrification comes. What is nitrification? The process of conversion of ammonia into nitrates is called nitrification. And last one, denitrification. Some of these nitrates are absorbed by plant. The rest are converted to free nitrogen gas by denitrifying bacteria. This is called denitrification. Now children, we are coming to the next chapter, that is synthetic plastic and synthetic fibers and plastics. First we are going to discuss advantages and disadvantages of synthetic fibers. First advantages, they are like their advantages over natural fibers. These synthetic fibers, they are strong, crease resistant, elastic, moth proof, easy to wash and last for a long time. These are the advantages. Not disadvantages. In hot and humid weather, synthetic clothes stick to the body and are therefore uncomfortable. Why they stick to the body? Because they do not absorb water or sweat as easily as natural fibers absorb. Other point is, some synthetic fibers catch fire very readily. They melt on heating and stick to the body, so therefore they can cause severe burn injuries. Synthetic clothes should not be worn in the kitchen or in the laboratory. Now we are going to discuss properties of plastics. Plastics are used everywhere, as we know. So why are their uses versatile? We are going to discuss their properties and their uses. Man-made, I am going to tell you about the man-made plastic like polythene. Polythene is, the property of polythene is strong, flexible, can be rolled into sheets or molded into any shape. And the uses of polythene for making sheets, to pack liquids such as milk. Polythene pipes are used to transport liquids such as oil or water. Second is polyvinyl chloride, and in short form we call it PVC. It is tough plastic and insulator. All plastics are insulated. It is used to cover electric wires, used to make shoes, handbags, furniture, upholstery, floor covering, raincoat and bottles. Next is polystyrene. Easily molded. Property is easily molded. It is used for as packaging material for delicate objects like electronic items and to make thermocol. It is used to insulate the hollow walls of refrigerators. Next is PTFE, or the name is Teflon or polytetrafluoroethylene. It is slippery in nature, not affected by heat and does not react chemically with other substances. It is used as a non-stick coating on pans and other cooking utensils. Come to Bakelite. It is harder than other plastic and a good electrical insulator. It is used for making buttons, plugs, switches and other electrical fittings. Next is Formica and melamine. They are hard and smooth. Their surfaces are hard and smooth. Used as tabletops and for making crockery. Now children, we are going to discuss destructive distillation. What do you mean by destructive distillation? Destructive distillation of coal is carried out by heating coal strongly to 1000 degrees Celsius in the absence of air. It yields various useful organic and inorganic products. These products are coke, coal gas, coal tar, ammonium compounds. Coke, how do we get coke? The residue left behind when destructive distillation of coal is carried out is coke. It is an almost pure form of carbon. It is good fuel and burns with no smoke. It is also used to reduce metal oxides such as iron and zinc oxide to get the metals. Next is coal gas. It is a mixture of hydrogen, methane, carbon monoxides and other gases. It was earlier used for domestic cooking and lighting, but is not much used now. Okay. Then coal tar. Coal tar is a thick viscous liquid mainly used for road construction. It contains several carbon compounds. It also used to make pesticides, explosives, synthetic fibers, perfumes, naphthalene balls, to repel moth and insects, dyes and paints. Today, children, we get these compounds from petroleum also. Next is ammonium compound. These are given off during the destructive distillation of coal. When dissolved in water, they give ammoniacal liquor. It is used for making nitrogenous fertilizers. Now we are coming to some important fractions of petroleum and their uses. Children, first very important thing, which property we use for fractional distillation, which property of hydrocarbons we use. As we know, the various hydrocarbons present in petroleum have different boiling points. As the number of carbon atoms in a hydrocarbon increases, its boiling point also increases. This property is used to separate the different components of petroleum by fractional distillation. How this takes place? Crude oil is first heated to about 400 degrees Celsius in a furnace. The vapors formed are passed into a tall fractionating tower. The hydrocarbons with the highest boiling points condensed first. They get collected near the base of the fractionating tower. Now children, we are going to discuss some important fractions of petroleum and their uses. First is petroleum gas, and the products are LPG, liquefied petroleum gas, fuel for home and industry. This is we use as fuel for home and industry. Second fraction is gasoline and naphtha. We get petrol from this, and it is used for motor fuel, aviation fuel, solvent for dry cleaning. Next is kerosene. It is used for domestic fuel, jet engine fuel, and then we get light oil. It is also called diesel, fuel for motor vehicles and for electric generators. Then heavy oil. It is we get many organic chemicals from heavy oil. And then last, its residue is there, that is also very rich. We get lubricating oil from that. It is used for lubricating machines and vehicles. Paraffin oil for making candles and Vaseline, ointments, etc. Asphalt, it is also called bitumen. Okay, it is used for surfacing the roads, and also used for making paints. Children, natural gas also we get. This is also a few. Natural gas is found along with petroleum in reservoirs under the ground. It is chiefly made up of methane, butane, propane, okay, and it is very clean, non-polluting fuel. Now we are coming to the inflammable substances. What are inflammable substances? Substances that have a very low ignition temperature and they can catch fire very easily are called inflammable substances. After this, one more thing I would like to discuss. The condition necessary for combustion. What conditions are necessary? First, presence of combustible substance, presence of supporter of combustion, heating the combustible substance to its ignition temperature. So these three things are important for combustion, these three conditions. More I would like to tell you types of combustion. There are three types of combustion. Rapid combustion. Which combustion is called rapid combustion? Like any fuel or any ignitable substance that catch fire rapidly to produce heat and light, such combustion is called rapid combustion. Second is spontaneous combustion. This is very interesting. The ignition temperature, I am giving you example of white phosphorus is 35 degrees Celsius. When we keep it in at room temperature, when the room temperature rises okay, more than 35 degrees in summers, what happens? It bursts into flames. This type of combustion, in which a material bursts into flame without the application of heat, is called spontaneous combustion. Third is explosion. This is a combustion reaction that occurs suddenly with the evolution of large amount of gas. Such reaction is called explosion, like firecrackers. Okay, firecrackers, when they explode, they give out heat, light, and sound energy. Now, children, we are coming to the extinguishing a fire. As I told you in the class, we use soda acid fire extinguisher. Soda acid fire extinguisher. Here we take sodium bicarbonate solution, and for the chemical reaction to take place, in this, what do we take? We take sodium bicarbonate and also sulfuric acid. How this fire extinguisher work? For the chemical reaction to take place, when the knob is struck, the bottle breaks and sulfuric acid react with sodium bicarbonate, liberating large amount of carbon dioxide gas with great force. Carbon dioxide forms a blanket around the fire, cutting off the supply, due to which the fire gets extinguished. And children, you also do the practice of the reaction takes place, like sodium bicarbonate plus sulfuric acid, it gives sodium sulfate, that is a salt. Water comes out also, water vapor, and also carbon dioxide. And this carbon dioxide helps in extinguishing fire. Now, children, we are coming to the different zones of a candle. When we light a candle, we observe it. When we observe its flame, okay, there are main four regions we see. First is outermost one is non-luminous. Outermost one is the non-luminous, that we cannot see. Why? Because here the complete combustion takes place. Okay, complete combustion takes place there. And it is the hottest part of the flame. Okay, because adequate supply of oxygen, complete combustion takes place. Come to the luminous object. It is the middle zone of the flame. The wax vapor do not burn completely because the supply of oxygen is inadequate. The carbon particle produced because of incomplete combustion, they glow. Carbon particles which are produced, they glow and they make it luminous zone, giving this zone its bright yellow color. The flame leaves black soot on an object placed in the room, okay, because of these carbon particles. Now, dark zone, the middle one, this is the dark zone, only the vapors are there because they are not getting the supply of oxygen. Okay. Now, next is fourth one, the blue zone is a small region at the base, here, at the base. Here the carbon monoxide produced in the inner zones due to incomplete combustion burned with the blue color. Okay, so these four zones are there. Now, children, we are going to discuss about cell organelles. As all you know, the cell we have divided into four parts. Structure of cell. First is like cell membrane. Outermost covering, we call it cell membrane or plasma membrane. It protects the cell and gives it a shape. It allows water, mineral and some other necessary substances to pass through it. Like in plant cell, with the cell membrane, one more is there, that is called cell wall. In plant cell have a cell wall which is absent in animal cell. The cell wall, the function of cell wall is to support and protect the plant cell. Now, Come to the cytoplasm. The cytoplasm is a jelly-like substance that makes up most of the inside of a cell. All life functions take place in cytoplasm. And then third is nucleus. Nucleus is a spherical body. Okay, the nucleus is the control center of the cell. It directs the growth of the cell and controls all the activities that go on within the cell. Okay. The liquid inside in the nucleus is called nucleoplasm, and it is separated by this nucleoplasm is separated by the cytoplasm by a thin membrane that is called nuclear membrane. Inside the nucleus is a smaller spherical body that is called nucleolus, and also thread-like structures are present. They are called chromosomes. They carry genes which contain all the information needed by the cell to function. Okay, now children, what is protoplasm? The nucleus and the cytoplasm together make up the protoplasm, which is called the living substance of the cell. Now we are coming to the organelles. Different organelles are present in the cytoplasm. First is mitochondria. It is small rod-like structure. The function of mitochondria is to oxidize food to provide energy. Second, vacuoles. They are sac-like structure. They store food, water and waste. Plant cells have large vacuoles as compared to animal cells. Next, plastids. Plastids are present in plant cells, not in the animal cell. They are responsible to give color to the plant, like a plant gets green color because of chloroplast, as plast contain green pigment, that is chlorophyll, responsible for making food. Next is Golgi body. The function of Golgi body to secrete enzymes. Endoplasmic reticulum. It is a pipe-like structure. It helps in transporting substances within the cell. Next is dot-like structure in the cell, that is ribosomes. The function of ribosomes are to make proteins. Lysosomes, they help in destroying old cells. That is why they are also called suicidal bag. And ribosomes are called protein factories. Chloroplasts are called kitchen of the cell. And one more thing, centrosome, they are present only in animal cell. Their function, they regulate what is their function? They regulate cell division. Okay, now I am going to tell you children the difference between plant cell and animal cell. Plant cells, they are larger than the animal cells. And second thing I told you already, they have additional cell wall. Animal cells, they do not have. Third, even that also I have told you, they have large vacuoles. Usually they have one or two vacuole, and one they are having very large vacuole. And in animal cells, vacuoles are either absent, or if they are present, they are very small. Plant cells, they have plastids. Animal cells, they do not have plastids. Animal cells, they have centrosome, but plant cells, they do not have centrosome. Now children, we are coming to what is fertilization. Okay, when male and female gamete, they fuse, they form zygote. This is called fertilization. The male sexual organ produce sperm, female sexual organs produced egg. When these two fuse, they form zygote, and this process is called fertilization. Fertilization is of two types, external fertilization and internal fertilization. External fertilization takes place in sea animals such as starfish, jellyfish. Okay, like I am giving you the example of jellyfish. They lay their eggs and sperms together on the surface of the water. The sperms fuse with eggs on the water, and form zygote. This type of fertilization is known as external fertilization, as it occurs outside the animal's body. And come to the internal fertilization. In birds, reptiles and mammals, the male deposits the sperm inside the reproductive system of the female. Fertilization occurs and the zygote is formed inside the female's body. This type of fertilization that occurs inside the body of the female is known as internal fertilization. Okay. Now come to the puberty. The onset of sexual maturity occurs in boys at the age of 11 to 16 and in girls at the age of 10 to 15 years. This is known as puberty. Okay. This male sex hormone testosterone, it is secreted by testes, and female hormones, ovaries, they secrete female hormones, estrogen and progesterone. Okay. And one more thing I would like to tell you, what is menstruation. If the ovum is not fertilized by a sperm, it is expelled from the uterus along with some uterine muscles and blood. This is known as menstruation. Okay children, thank you.